Staff within the Justice Department and FBI, it is fair to say, are on edge. Workers bracing for more firings due to the changes under the Trump administration, and more shakeups, well, they are expected as Pam Bondi's first full week as Attorney General begins. For insight, I want to turn to Scott MacFarlane. Scott, there was a report over this weekend that senior leaders in intelligence and at the FBI are now being asked questions.
Yeah, the scrutiny is broader than just FBI agents. The Department of Justice is staffing up with any number of new political appointees, and there may be some vacancies quite soon in the civil service if there's a purge going on. There's reporting that some of the questions being asked relate to, was January 6th a Fedsurrection?
An inside job.
An inside job, or was it real? To be clear, that'd be a question based on a conspiracy theory, not grounded in truth at all. But my latest reporting as we come on the air is that there is now growing concern about the fortunes and the fates of the dozens, maybe 150 assistant U.S. attorneys who were dispatched to Washington, D.C. to help prosecute the January 6 cases. There were so many cases so quickly, you'll recall, by the hundreds. They needed to bring in outside teams to help the finite number of prosecutors in Washington get through all the cases. So there are U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys from other states, other regions who came here to help with the cases. There's concern they will be, at some point, either disciplined or retaliated against for having any nexus to January 6th. It's also worth mentioning, federal defenders were brought in from across the country to defend some of these accused rioters, convicted rioters. They may be beyond scrutiny because they were defense attorneys, but it underscores something. This was such a big prosecution, historic in nature. It took outside help to manage it. Now some of those outside helpers are worried for their jobs.
It almost creates the idea, Scott, that doing this work, which in many cases the people you just described were assigned to do, has created a kind of a radioactivity for their entire future within the Justice Department.
I think fundamentally everything that has touched January 6th has been nitroglycerin. It has been poised to explode, whether you were the judges handling those cases, taking incoming death threats by the dozens. Whether you're a U.S. attorney or a prosecutor, somebody dispatched here to Washington or somebody based in Washington who had to handle the assignment you were given, you're menaced with threats, now facing retaliation. And these 5,000 FBI agents and employees who were part of the investigation have this cloud over their head, checking their emails every few minutes to see if they've been put on leave or been subject to termination. That is a distraction for agents who chase terrorists for a living. This is all metastasizing. There's an end date, presumably, to some of this, but right now it's an agency in turmoil, notwithstanding the changes at the top.
How does this flow through Pam Bondi as the new Attorney General?
So a whole new set of policies came out of Pam Bondi in her first week, and we'd expect more in the coming days. Among those first set of policy changes was reinstituting federal pursuit of the death penalty in some high-level criminal cases, a return-to-work policy to require those who aren't back in the office, wherever they are in the United States Justice Department, to come back to the office, which will have an impact on the number of employees they have in short order. What comes next? Hard to say, but we would expect a whole rollout of policy initiatives under the Attorney General because she has promised to see change. She's promised to end weaponization of the Department of Justice, and she's going to have to perhaps broaden what she rolls out to make any of those things happen or to make a public show of it.
45 seconds. Rod Blagojevich, if you remember the Obama administration, he was a name to recall.
He was released from prison during COVID, or just before the COVID pandemic, which brings us back
Former
5
Illinois
years.
governor, yeah.
His supervision concluded in 2021. He has been a private citizen for some time now, but it sure does line up, doesn't it? As the early pardons all have some nexus to politics, be it January 6th or be it former office holders. Let's see what happens with the prosecution of Mayor Eric Adams in New York.
Pardon of Rod Blagojevich, possibly an ambassadorship in his future. Scott MacFarlane, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.